KVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and BeaverCountyRadio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddie Crow.
I'm always glad to see my first guest this morning, but I don't know if I've been more glad than I am today. First hour today, Dale Reckless, MRS Physical Therapy. This is being live streamed on our Facebook page if you want to watch this. I am so happy to see you.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of reasons. One, I always learn stuff and we always have a good conversation. Two, for at least an hour, you allow me to not talk about the real world. I'll get to the real world later, but we're talking about way more uplifting stuff. And if you're not watching this, I'll paint the picture. Dale brought pamphlets. I am a big fan of pamphlets. So what are we talking about today? Is it a pamphlet?
So the title of the show is I Didn't Know You Did That. So what I did is...
that could go a lot of different directions, couldn't it? Yes,
so what we're going to talk about is programs that the most common programs that we do at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy, that patients come in to see me and they say, I didn't realize you did this, or I didn't realize you did that. So there's programs that we do that patients might have had a diagnosis they've been suffering with for years and years and never realized, number one, that a physical therapist could treat that, or number two, that it's one of our specialty things that we treat at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. So we're going to talk about some of those common, what I call unique programs to MRS Physical Therapy, because not all physical therapy clinics do these programs.
Right.
They're fairly unique to MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy, number one. Number two, a lot of people didn't realize that we even treat these diagnoses. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
I didn't. That's a great topic. It happened to me yesterday. I was at the Shop and Save, and I went to the help counter, and I said, I don't know, do you guys sell stamps? And they go, yeah. It's like, oh, I didn't know you did that. So we're basically reliving the moment with the different programs. That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
So I brought a number of different programs, and we'll hopefully get through all of them today.
Okay.
And I'm just going to touch base a little bit on each one as we go through.
Am I doing any stupid human tricks like I usually get to do?
It won't be too bad today. And
you said that before, and I left with a limp one time.
I saw you recently wearing a turtle hat on your head. So nothing I do is,
fair enough,
making you wear a turtle hat on your head. So
I may cripple you, but you won't wear a turtle hat. We'll be fine. Okay. Right. What's the first program?
Well, the first one actually we'll have a little demo with, and it's one of the most exciting programs, new programs that we have. We've just recently started it. And that's our stretch therapy program. Now, we recently started the program, but it's been something that we've actively done with our patients for years and years. So in a way, it's not new, but in a way, it is new because we're putting a different spin on how we're providing it to our clients. So instead of our clients coming in with a diagnosis and therapy that they need stretching for, this is for anybody. So anybody can come in, whether you feel like you're hurting or you just need stretched out. It's called an assisted stretching program. So it's a one-on-one program that you come in and we work on whatever body part you want, or we just do a general overall body stretch for you. It's one-on-one, so we're doing the stretching for you. So instead of traditionally what you think about us teaching you how to stretch yourself, which we also do, this is us giving you a very therapeutic and thorough stretch of your muscles of your body. And we can just do a general over, head to toe body stretch. Or if you have a specific area that you want us to work on, we can do that as well. So say, for example, you know that your low back's really tight. You know that your hamstrings are really tight. And no matter what you do yourself, you just can't get a good stretch. This is a great program for you to come in for us to stretch you.
For the people that do their stretching at home, them coming in and going through this program, wouldn't that be a really good reference point to be able to make sure when you're at home you're doing it correctly?
Right. So it's a really good reference point for you knowing what your limitations of your muscles are and how far you can safely stretch your muscles.
Hugely
So
limited.
a lot of people will do a stretch, but they really don't stretch it the right way, number one, or they're not stretching it far enough to be to make a true improvement, number two. So when we stretch you, you get a better idea of how far your joint range of motion should be. So you'll get a feel for what a good therapeutic stretch is. Then maybe you take that home and you have more information on how to stretch yourself. But this is really a one-on-one assisted stretching program where we are stretching you, and we're using a system a type of stretch called PNF, which stands for proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. It's a very specific technique, which I'll demonstrate on you today, Eddie.
Can I just go ahead and say PNF, because that's a lot of syllables.
PNF is what we call it.
Okay.
I like to spell it out in case people are writing things down at home. But it's a specific type of assisted stretching that we do with our clients. And we've had really good feedback with our new program that we've started out with. People leave almost immediately feeling like they're standing taller because we're stretching their muscles out that have kind of, they're kind of become hunched over. They're able to then stand up taller after we stretch them. We've had good feedback from people that are older. As they age, they start to lose range of motion in their joints. They're now able to turn their head to look behind them farther, maybe to look for the car coming, as they're pulling out into traffic.
Yep.
Or they're able to put their shoe on better because they have more flexibility now in their hip after we did the assisted stretching program. So they can actually reach their foot to put their shoe on and tie their shoes easier. So we've really seen some functional improvements in these patients, as well as we've had clients come in and say, they feel like they have less low back pain, or their sciatic nerves not irritating them as much. They've had the best night's sleep they ever had after we stretched them out, things like that. And also our clients come in and they're very excited to know that these are therapists stretching them. These are physical therapy and physical therapy assistants that are stretching them. And we are licensed to do this. We went to school for it. We took a board examination. We're licensed to do this type of stretching. So it's not just someone, coming off the street that, is stretching you out, but someone that's been licensed and they've been practicing this for many years on how to stretch the body. And they know every muscle in the body. We took gross anatomy, classes. So we know every muscle in the body and where the connections are and how the muscles should operate and move. So it's really our wheelhouse to know how to stretch someone appropriately.
Are there people that are offering stretches that haven't studied stretches?
There are some companies out there that have different types of programs, and I don't want to talk poorly about them.
I don't mention any names.
Yeah,
but
the clients that we've had come in really appreciate that they have a therapist, a physical therapy, and a physical therapy assistant that are stretching them.
They appreciate the fact that before you start tweaking on something, you actually know the name of the parts you're messing with.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. You're going to mess with me. Do I need to stand up? Can we do it sitting
actually,
down?
you can stay in your chair and just face
this is being
the
live
soundboard
feeded
there.
right now.
And
if
I'm
you
going to come
watch.
behind you here.
If you've got questions for Dale, you can call at any time, 724-843-1888 or 774-1888. Are you moving the mic as I'm talking just to mess with me? You are, aren't you?
I want them to be able to hear me as well as you.
All right, well, here, I'm done talking. There you go.
All right, that's good. I mean, they should be able to hear you some, but they want to hear me a little bit so because I'm going to describe. If you're not watching on Facebook, you want to hear what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right?
And if you're not watching on Facebook, this is way better than your streaming service.
So this is a really great stretch for a lot of people because we get a lot of tightness in our pectoral muscles. The pectoral muscles are in the front of our chest, our shoulder muscles. Those are our pecs. Most people are familiar. They know what their pectoral muscles are. They're chest muscles right there, right?
Logo muscle.
So these muscles get tight throughout the course of our day. So when we're sitting or we're standing and we have rounded forward shoulders because we're usually doing work in front of us, that could be typing.
I'm usually like this.
That could be any activity that you're doing in front of you. And most of our jobs are this for 8 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So those pectoral muscles get tight. So this is a stretch for those pectoral muscles. And this is, again, it's a PNF stretch, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. It's a specific technique that I'm going to use, and you'll see what that is when I start stretching Eddie for the pectoral muscles. So you're going to put your hands behind your neck here. And so the first thing we do is see what our client's limitations are. So Eddie's hands are fingers are interlocked behind his neck, and I'm pulling his elbows back so I can see what his range of motion limitations are. So there's a stop point there where his first level of limitation is, and that's what we're going to work on. So then I have Eddie meet my resistance. So he's going to put my hands are on his elbows, and he's going to pull into my hands, and he's going to meet my resistance. So I'm resisting him a little bit, and he is meeting my resistance, meaning he's not pulling as hard as he can, but he's pulling into the amount of resistance that I'm providing for him. Then I hold it for a couple second hold, about 10, 15 second hold, and then I'm going to have him relax. And then he relaxes. As he relaxes, I give those pectoral muscles a little bit of extra stretch behind him here.
As he scratches his nose, I think.
And then I find the next range of motion stop here.
I have a question. Should I be leaning back because these chairs are high enough where I'm getting my shoulder blades in them? Should I be leaning back or sitting straight up?
I'm kind of resisting your chair so you don't recline back too much. I want you sitting upright straight, but you can lean back into the back of the chair. That's fine. Okay, so that's the next level of limitation. Then I repeat that again. So he's going to pull into my hands again, and you're going to meet my resistance. So you're going to pull a little bit more. There you go. Hold that right there. We're going to hold that for about 10 seconds here. So as he's holding this stretch, the muscles are tightening up. And then after the muscles tighten up, I'm going to have him release, and that's the P&F technique. And when I have him release, I find the next endpoint here. And as we do this, we should find a new endpoint where there's more range of motion in those pectoral muscles. So those pectoral muscles now have increased flexibility. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and you're going to relax your arms down. So it's as simple as that. And that's just one muscle group that we stretched as our example for today. If you saw our show a couple months ago, we did more of a full body stretch on Eddie, and that's what we do with our clients when they come in. If they just want a general overall stretch, then we do the neck muscles, the shoulder muscles, the low back muscles are real key, the hip muscles are key, the hamstrings are tight on probably 90% of the people I stretch out. Hip flexor muscles are tight on about 90% of the people I stretch out.
Is that where most
going all
of
the way
it?
down, going all the way down to the ankles.
Okay.
So the stretching program, it's called Stretch Therapy. If you're interested in it, just call us up. We have 2 offices. One is in Bridgewater in Stone Point Landing, and that number is 724-728-7550. And then our second office is Cranberry Physical Therapy. That's on Route 19 right next to North Park Lounge. That number is 724-591-8121. This is a cash-based service, so you don't need to see a doctor first. You don't need a script. You just come in. You can do a 25 or 50-minute stretch. Most people are doing the 25-minute stretch to start out, and it's only $39 for a 25-minute stretch, which is very reasonable, I think, to do the one-on-one assisted stretching program for us.
When you I want to ask you, when you first start, could it be possible the 50-minute stretch will be too much for people? Is it a good general idea to say start small? Or
I like to start with I usually start the 25-minute stretch for people because it allows us to get to know you. It allows us to get to know your body and where your tight areas are. And then if you want to go to a 50-minute stretch after that, then we can kind of give more focus on certain muscle groups that are important for us to get. And then after the first 25-minute stretch, we ask feedback from the patients as well. We want to know from our clients after the 25-minute stretch, what did you feel helped you the most? What did you feel were your tight areas? The next day after that stretch, what did you feel like, oh boy, that really helped me out a lot? And then we can maybe focus a little bit more in depth on those areas the next time they come in.
Okay.
Patients are coming in once or twice a week. Sometimes they come in, every week. Sometimes they come in every other week. It's really client independent as far as, how often they want to come in for a stretch. But, once or twice a week is pretty common for what the clients are feeling the most benefits from.
Okay. Is there any general area you're going to gain 15 degrees in your shoulders, or you're going to gain 10 degrees of new mobility in your hip?
Yeah, the biggest impact, I think, is in your hips and your hamstrings and your hip flexors.
Okay.
Because so many of us have low back issues, and low back issues are typically caused from tightness in your low back muscle. There's a low back muscle called the quadratus lumborum, which is really key for that. There's your hamstring muscles are really key for low back issues, and your hip flexors are really key for low back issues. So if we can get those muscles, if we can increase those muscles 5 to 10 degrees range of motion, it's going to really improve your mobility and decrease your pain, specifically in your low back, which is very common for my clients.
Dale Reckless is my guest. It's Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy, of course. And we're doing the I Didn't Know You Did That series. And that's a great idea. We just did stretch therapy. What's the next one? I'm trying to read the pamphlet upside down.
The next one is facial nerve therapy.
Really?
Yes.
You got a lot of nerve wearing that face around?
That's a good one.
Is that it?
That should be in our brochure.
All right. What is facial nerve therapy?
So facial nerve therapy is a program for people that have issues with facial nerve paralysis.
Okay.
Commonly, things that we see are Bell's palsy or Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. And these are they're facial paralysis syndromes where all of a sudden your facial nerve has an issue and your side of your face no longer works right. You lose your facial expression on one side. You're not able to smile. You're not able to blink. It's harder to do certain facial expressions like that. So a facial nerve program, there's not a lot of physical therapists that do that in the area, so it's very unique to MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. But we use things like biofeedback, which are little electrodes that you put on. They don't provide electrical current, but they sense your motion. So it gives you an auditory and a visual feedback to know that your muscles are working properly.
So it's a recording device rather than a stimulus device.
It's a recording device to cue you to know that you're using your muscles appropriately to increase the muscle activation for the facial muscles. We also do soft tissue for the muscle, facials of the muscle. the face muscles to help make sure they're flexible. And we can treat patients anywhere from acute to chronic setting. So if it's just happened to you, we can treat that patient. But also for the patient that's had this for years. I have a patient right now that had Ramsay-Hunt syndrome 9 years ago, but could never find someone that did the therapy. Once she found us, we're starting out the facial nerve program, and she's doing very well with it. So no matter if it's an acute issue for you, if you had it a long time ago, and you still don't have your normal smile, you don't have your normal eye closure, you don't have your normal brow, your eyebrow raise, your forehead raise, we can give you exercises. We'll work with you with the soft tissue and the biofeedback to help get those muscles reactivated to the point that they're more normalized.
How much more regenerative is nerve tissue than we thought 10, 15 years ago?
It's very regenerative, but it takes time.
Okay.
And that's the frustrating part for people. It does take time for things to regenerate. But with a proper program, and you want to do a proper program, you don't want to just watch YouTube videos for this, because you can develop something called synkinesis. And synkinesis is the biggest issue when people are recovering from facial paralysis. And what synkinesis is when you smile, your eye also will close or something else will happen.
So it looks like you're winking at someone.
Instead of just the muscle activating, you have all these other muscles that are activating at the same time, which can be disfiguring, and you don't want that to happen. So it's very important that you find a physical therapist like us at MRS Physical Therapy that knows how to work with muscles, so we're getting the muscle return without the other muscles being activated at the same time.
Dale Reckless is my guest this first hour. I love talking to Dale. I've learned more already than I did all of yesterday. Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy. News is next, and I'm going to learn more with Dale. It's Teleforum on Beaver County Radio.
Did you know Fisher's New Brighton Foodland is as close as a click? That's right. You can order your groceries right from your home. Click GroceryStoreNewBrighton.com and fill your shopping cart up. It's just that easy. Or stop in to shop for your favorite items. They specialize in fresh meats, hoagies, bakery items, and of course the deli. Pick up a delicious hot meal to go like fried chicken dinners, and don't forget fried fish every Friday. Don't cook, make it a Foodland day. Visit Fisher's New Brighton Foodland, your one stop to shop for all needs, or click GroceryStoreNewBrighton.com.
Summer is just around the corner. Have your air conditioner serviced and checked by a professional at Burns HVAC in Rochester. They have been serving Allegheny, Beaver, and Butler counties for over 30 years. No worries, they are fully insured and licensed. Whether it's heating, cooling, or even ventilation, Burns HVAC can help. They repair, install, and service all your needs. Burns HVAC is professional and takes pride in their work with efficient and prompt service. For price or service, call Josh at 412-522-0465 or visit BurnsHVACLLC.com to schedule an appointment. Put your house in the cool zone with Burns.
Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center presents Night of Dreams, a first-class gala on September 16th at Willows, an evening of dining, music, and dancing benefiting the artistic and educational programs of Lincoln Park. For tickets, visit lincolnparkarts.org.
Ambridge Italian Villa, a family tradition with the taste sensation.
The most important things to remember if you are planning a party, get-together, or family reunion is great food, great friends, and a great atmosphere. Make your special event a memorable one with food from Ambridge Italian Villa. The Villa offers a great selection of Greek, Italian, and American food, plus desserts and their famous gyros. Call today at 724-266-1919 and place your takeout order or place your order online. This way you can spend more time with family and friends and still enjoy the event. That's Ambridge Italian Villa on Duss Avenue in Ambridge. Check out Ambridge Italian Villa on Facebook for more details about their food truck.
Ambridge Italian Villa, a family tradition with the taste sensation.
The warm weather is back, and that can only mean one thing. Pirates baseball for a 75th season on Beaver County Radio. Tune in and listen to the Pirates Radio Network broadcast team as they take you through every pitch, hit, and out of the 2023 baseball season. Make sure you set your radio dial to WBVP WMBA 99.3 FM or 95.7 FM for all the action. Pirates baseball is being presented locally by the St. Barnabas Health System, Freedom United Federal Credit Union, Falcone's Moon Township Board, Keystone Wellness Program, Friendly Federal Credit Union, Dr. C. Timothy Lip, and Beaver County Radio, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA.
Beaver County Radio's news source. 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Good morning. On this Wednesday, August 16th, 2023, the Beaver County weather forecast is calling for mostly cloudy skies today with a high of 80 degrees. We'll check your Beaver County weather forecast following this look at news. Beaver County Radio News Director Curtis Walsh reports that the suspect of a bank robbery in Beaver Falls was taken into custody at 6:15 p.m. Tuesday. Chief David Johnson of the Beaver Falls Police Department tells Beaver County Radio that the suspect, Derek Grant of Pittsburgh, was located fleeing from a wood line along 6th Avenue on College Hill. He was subsequently arrested and taken into custody. No injuries were reported, and Chief Johnson said everything went smoothly. Grant is accused of entering the Beaver Valley Federal Credit Union Tuesday with a bat and proceeded to attempt to rob the bank. Johnson did not want to comment on the amount of money Grant took at this time. Beaver County District Attorney David Lozier considered the situation an attempted robbery. Sources tell Beaver County Radio that a small amount of money had been taken before the suspect fled. Full details about the attempted robbery can be seen by going to our website at beavercountyradio.com. Additional photos and video from yesterday's incident can be seen on our Facebook page at WBVP-WMBA. Beaver County students will see more fresh produce during the school day thanks to new grant funding of more than $105,900 from the State Department of Education, State Representative Rob Matze announced yesterday. Matze said 4 grants awarded under the federal Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program will allow the Aliquippa, Ambridge area, and Rochester area school districts to supplement regular school meals with appetizing healthy options. The funding includes $38,808 to the Aliquippa Elementary School, $25,128 to the Rochester Elementary School, $22,824 to Highland Elementary School in the Ambridge Area School District, and $19,152 to State Street Elementary School in the Ambridge Area School District. Under the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, selected schools are reimbursed for the cost of making free fresh fruits and vegetables available to students during the school day, separate from the lunch or breakfast meal in one or more areas of the school. The goals are to introduce children to new, wider varieties of fresh fruits and vegetables and to increase overall acceptance and consumption of fresh, unprocessed produce. The program also promotes nutrition education. To be eligible, schools must participate in the National School Lunch Program. The FFVP prioritizes schools with the highest percentage of children eligible for free and reduced price meals in order to give children from low-income families more opportunities to consume fresh produce on a regular basis. Authorities say the owners of a home that exploded in western Pennsylvania were having issues with their hot water tank, but the cause of the blast remains under investigation. 5 people died, including 2 municipal officials. The explosion last weekend in Plum destroyed 3 structures and damaged at least a dozen others. It occurred Saturday morning at a home owned by the town's community development director and her husband. Plum's mayor says the woman and another town official were killed. 3 other people, including a 12-year-old boy who lived in the neighborhood, also died. The community development director's husband suffered severe burns over most of his body. He remained hospitalized Tuesday in critical condition. United States Attorney Eric G. Olshan announced Tuesday that 56-year-old Ravitej Reddy of Pittsburgh has been sentenced in federal court to 18 months of imprisonment in order to forfeit $9 million in criminal proceeds and pay more than $77 million in restitution on his convictions for conspiring to pay illegal kickbacks related to laboratory tests. Reddy previously pled guilty to 3 counts of conspiring to commit offenses against the United States and 1 count of offering and paying kickbacks in connection with a federal health care program. United States District Judge William S. Stickman imposed a sentence for Reddy. According to information presented to the court, Reddy used 2 Pittsburgh area laboratories he owned and operated in the execution of 3 illegal kickback schemes. Reddy and others paid kickbacks to marketers in return for the marketers obtaining cheek swabs from Medicare beneficiaries to be used in laboratory testing. Reddy and others also paid kickbacks to ensure that telemedicine physicians provided prescriptions for laboratory testing for the swabs obtained by the marketers. Reddy's labs then billed for the performance of the tests. In all, Reddy and others caused a loss to the United States in excess of $60 million. U.S. Attorney Olshan commended the FBI for the investigation leading to the successful prosecution of Reddy.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Mostly cloudy skies today with a high of 80 degrees. Partly cloudy skies tonight with a low of 64. A mix of clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 82. Morning showers Friday, followed by partly cloudy skies later in the day and a high of 75. Mostly sunny Saturday with a high of 79. Sunny and hot for your Sunday with a high of 87 degrees. That is a look at the news for now. I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News, 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming worldwide at beavercountyradio.com.
Talk about what's happening in Beaver County or around the world on Teleforum, 724-843-1888, 724-774-1888. It's Teleforum with Eddie Crow.
It is Teleforum, but it's way better than Eddie Crow. Dale Reckless is here. One of the visit days that we get. Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy. You can call with your questions. You just heard the numbers. You can watch. This is being live Facebook streamed on the radio station Facebook. And the theme for today is, I didn't know you did that. Talking about what MRS Physical Therapy does, the programs that they have that maybe people don't know. Stretch therapy, we had talked about before. Mm-hmm. Maybe you still didn't know. We talked about facial nerve therapy, which is really interesting. What else? Dale brought in a stack load of pamphlets. I got reading material for the next week.
Next, we're going to move on to our Parkinson's program. And the Parkinson's program is not new, but it's fairly unique to MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy because of the specific components of the Parkinson's and how we treat those patients.
And that is, if you're watching, that is this pamphlet.
So the first program is LSVT Big, which is a specific exercise program for people with Parkinson's. It's been around for a while. We've been practicing it for over 10 years with our clients, but it's a very successful program for people with Parkinson's. So if you have Parkinson's and you've had therapy before, but you've never done the LSVT Big program, it's worth calling us up at MRS Physical Therapy or Cranberry Physical Therapy and trying out the LSVT Big program, because it's a very different idea than just traditional physical therapy. Because what we focus on with the LSVT Big program is with Parkinson's, your movements often become smaller and slower. So it specifically helps those symptoms that come with Parkinson's to help your movements become more normalized. It's a program that's 4 times a week for 4 straight weeks. It's been researched, so it's a scientifically based program with that dosage to come 4 times a week for 4 weeks to learn the exercises, to get the most benefits. And we're really retraining the brain to think, to get more normalized movements that Parkinson's has changed through its diagnosis.
I'm going to ask a really technical question and probably not understand the answer. What does Parkinson's do to the brain that you're able to retrain or untrain?
Yeah, so the dopamine changes in the brain make your movements slower and smaller. And we're retraining the pathways and the way you think about your movements in order to make those movements more normalized. So because Parkinson's make your movements smaller and slower, we retrain you to think to make those movements bigger and kind of over-exaggerate the movements. But when you over-exaggerate the movements, we're trying to get them to become more normalized. So the 4 times a week for 4 straight weeks is working on specific exercises that were designed through the LSVT Big protocol to get those movements to become more normalized for our Parkinson's patients. The second program that we have for our Parkinson's patients that people probably don't know about is our facial expressions program. We call it Big Expressions. And another common symptom with people with Parkinson's is they get facial masking. And what that means is they don't have the normal expression in their face that they normally do. So if you see someone with Parkinson's, I can usually tell it pretty quick that they have Parkinson's by their facial expressions. They're just missing. They have what's called facial masking, where they don't have a normal smile. They don't have normal expressions in their face.
Is it stone-faced or is it just different expressions?
It's kind of stone-faced.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So they don't have the normal expression in their face. And what the Big Expressions program is it helps those expressions become more normalized. So what we've done is we combined the LSVT Big program in addition to our facial nerve program to get this Big Expressions program to work on getting those facial muscles to work better, to get your facial expression back as Parkinson's has taken it away. So this is one of our newer programs as well, facial or Big Expressions program for people with Parkinson's.
What are some of the exercises?
So the exercises are working on
here stretching
your facial muscles of expression. So sometimes those muscles have become tight because you're not using them as much. Parkinson's, is not letting you use the muscles. So there's some soft tissue, some manual therapy working on to improve the flexibility of those facial muscles. Your facial muscles are just like any other muscle in the body. They're innervated by a nerve. They can get tight if you don't use it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And we can reactivate those muscles with exercise. Just like any other idea that we have with working on muscles, the facial muscles are no different. So we're just applying what we know about muscles to the facial nerve muscle, which are the facial muscles of expression. Your smile, your pucker, your eye closure, your eyebrow raise, your forehead raise. All those muscles are innervated by the facial nerve. So we're working on getting those muscles to reactivate through our program.
When this is a problem, does the brain think it's sending the correct information and it's just not getting carried out?
Yeah,
or does the brain understand that there's a dopamine issue that's not allowing it to get carried out?
So that's a good question. So most people don't realize that they've lost that facial expression because they think that they're still doing the more normal movements. So, a person with Parkinson's thinks their arm movements and their foot movements are normal, but they've changed. So they don't realize it's changed because the brain, thinks it's moving normal, but it's not. So we're retraining the brain through the LSVT Big program to think bigger and to move bigger. We're retraining the facial muscles to move more normalized through the principles of the LSVT Big.
You said that there was therapy that existed before the LSVT. What's the difference between what did exist and what you're doing?
So there's components of Parkinson's physical therapy that we still do. We haven't forgotten about it. This is an additional program beyond what traditional PT has been for. Traditional PT for Parkinson's is usually working on postural muscles, which is still important, working on your balance, which is still important, working on your overall mobility, which is still important. Parkinson's doesn't typically affect strength a whole lot, so you're not really strengthening someone with Parkinson's, but you're working on their mobility and their function. So we're continuing to do a lot of those components with our physical therapy program, just like other places do. But these are new additional programs on top of what a traditional physical therapy program might do that we offer at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy.
If somebody's had Parkinson's or been diagnosed with Parkinson's for 6 months, are they a better candidate for this therapy than somebody that's been diagnosed 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, so the program will help anybody no matter where you are,
Okay.
whether it's a recent diagnosis or a diagnosis a long time ago. But certainly the sooner you start, the better off you are.
Okay.
So the sooner you start addressing the issue before the other components of things start to work in, it's going to be easier to work with someone before their muscles have started to get tight, for example. So if they were just diagnosed and we're just seeing a little bit of symptoms, it's going to be easier to work with that client versus someone that's had Parkinson's for 15 years. They've already developed a lot of tightness in their muscles, rigidity in their muscles, and things like that. However, you can start the program at any time, and we still see improvement and good results through that program.
What are indicators of Parkinson's?
Usually that slowness and smallness of movement.
Okay.
People will notice something called micrographia, where your handwriting becomes really small, your signature becomes a lot smaller than it used to be. Usually it's a spouse that will notice something first because the patient doesn't realize their movements become slower and smaller.
That was my next question. You said you might be thinking you're making the same facial expressions, but you're not.
It feels all normal to you,
Yeah.
but other people are starting to notice things. That's typically happens with Parkinson's.
All right. It is 1230 WBVP 1460 WMBA 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM. The sun is shining. It's 68 degrees, and Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy is my guest, going through, wow, I didn't know you did that. Stretch therapy, we've talked about, facial nerve therapy. Just right now, the LSVT, the Parkinson's program. What's the next program? I'm trying my best to get through all of
You're
it
doing
because
great.
this is all cool stuff.
Yeah, so next is our vestibular therapy program.
Oh, this one I know.
This is one of my favorites because it's got really successful outcomes, number one. So I can have someone come in and I can fix them in 1 or 2 sessions. And what we're talking about is dizziness. So patients that come in and they say, I'm dizzy. When I roll in bed, the room spins. That's called vertigo. And this is a program that we've had for a long time, but still patients come in all the time and they say, I didn't know you did this.
Yeah.
I didn't know a physical therapist can treat this. I didn't know you had this program at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. So it's something that I like to talk about a lot because I like people to be aware that it is something we do. Number one, it's something that we can treat, and we have really quick, successful outcomes, especially with vertigo. So vertigo is called benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. And what that is when you have it, if you're listening at home, when you roll in bed, the room spins, or you get up out of bed and the room spins. It could be a little bit of spin, like a little bit of rotation. It could just feel like a little bit of movement, or it could be a violent spinning where it's so violent it makes you throw up.
Queasy. Yep.
Not just queasy, but you could actually vomit from it. So it can be really significant and severe. Sometimes people get it just out of nowhere, like nothing happened. Some people get it because they had an accident where they hit their head off of something. That could be a concussion in sports. That could be a car accident. That could be a fall. Any of those things could knock what we call the crystals that are inside your inner ear out of place from where they're supposed to be. And that causes the vertigo. That causes that spinning sensation when you roll in bed or get out of bed. And we do some very simple techniques for us as physical therapists because we know how to do them. The first thing that we do is we need to identify which ear the problem's in and then which canal in that ear the problem's in. So I do have patients.
Can it be in both?
It could be.
Okay.
I have patients that come in and they said, well, I looked it up online and I tried it and it didn't really help. I said, well, that's probably because you didn't know which ear and which canal the problem was in. And you really need to know which ear and which canal the problem is in before you treat it. And you just treat it through a series of position changes. Once you know which ear and which canal the problem's in. And then we can usually get pretty good outcomes within 1 or 2 visits. I have people that come in that have had vertigo for 15, 20 years, just never realized that we treated that. Like I'll be seeing them for something unrelated, and in our discussion, we'll talk about, vertigo, and I'll be like, oh, I can fix that. And they're like, you can? I said, yeah. And I fix it in 1 or 2 visits, and they're extremely happy. And I'm a little bit frustrated because I wish they would have known this, not dealt with it for 20 years. But that's why I like to talk about it a lot and advocate for our program at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy and how we can treat vertigo.
Are symptoms of vertigo or demonstrations of vertigo triggered only by physical movements? Can you get dizzy without standing up or getting out of bed or starting your day?
There are different types of dizziness.
Okay.
So that's something that we diagnose and figure out as well. So when a patient comes to my clinic, we need to differentiate whether it's a peripheral vertigo, which is the one we treat, or if it's centralized vertigo, which can be caused by different types of issues.
Gets a whole bunch more on the plate.
If you have multiple sclerosis, you might have centralized vertigo, which is not specifically treated with that vertigo, that dizzy technique. So we do need to differentiate if it's a peripheral or if it's a centralized issue. But if it's a peripheral one, we have very successful outcomes. Some of the patients that have vestibular hypofunction, which falls into our vestibular therapy, they might not be fixed in 1 or 2 visits. And that's pretty normal. So if your vestibular system is off for some reason, maybe you had a virus or something that affected your inner ear.
What's the vestibular system?
That's your inner ear. That gives you your balance. Okay. So if that system's off for some reason, that treatment can take a little bit longer. It's still going to be a successful outcome, but instead of 1 or 2 visits, it might take 1 or 2 months to fix it. And that's when your vestibular system is just weak. It's not working up to par. And we have a different type of program. It still falls under our vestibular therapy program. But if you're at home and you're walking and you feel like you're drifting to one side, or you feel like you're just wavy, or when you drive in a car, it's called visual motion sensitivity. You have trouble when you're driving in a car, you just feel like off, or you feel a little bit, off sensation. We can treat that as well. That's called visual motion sensitivity.
It is I've got so many questions about that, but I know we need to move on. I am working my way towards the next pamphlet, TMJ. Is that known as? That's not lockjaw, is it?
So the TMJ is your temporal mandibular joint. So we call it TMJ. Most people just refer it to it as TMJ therapy. It's your jaw.
Okay.
So your jaw could be locked. It's different than lockjaw, but your jaw can get locked, and when it gets locked, it's because there's a malfunction in the inside your joint itself, in your TMJ joint. So things that if you're at home and you have pain in your jaw when you eat, when you yawn,
when I watch the news,
when you brush your teeth, you can get pain in the jaw joint, which is just in front of your ear on either side. It can be on one side specifically. It can be on both sides. Typically, patients that we see are patients that have trouble when they're trying to eat like a big permane sandwich, for example. They can't open up their mouth far enough, or it hurts to open up their mouth far enough for that, or it hurts to brush their teeth, or it hurts to yawn.
Now, you're not talking about dehinging your jaw like a lizard or a snake. You're talking about can't open a normal amount.
Well, there's 2 issues. Sometimes it is that. So there's a hypomobility issue where you can't open your mouth far enough, like to eat a big sandwich, or there are hypermobility issues when your jaw opens too far. So you should have about 40 millimeters of opening in your jaw when you open, which is about 2.5 knuckles inside. But if you can't get those inside of your mouth, then you probably have a hypomobility issue where you can't open your mouth far enough. And you usually realize that when you can't eat a big sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, Eddie's trying it. Yep, you knew he would.
Oh, yeah. See, this is the beauty of live Facebook streaming.
But if you can get all your whole hand in your mouth and you have a hypermobility issue, we won't try that one.
And then you work
that's
at a
too much
carnival.
motion, and you probably have pain in your jaw from Eddie's proud. He's got 3 in there. So we treat TMJ issues, which now you're going to have TMJ issues from trying to stress yourself out there.
TMJ.
So we do different techniques. We do soft tissue work extraorally, which means the muscles outside of your jaw, and intraorally. We put a glove on and we put our fingers inside of your mouth and work on the muscles that you can only get to inside of your mouth. There's a muscle straight back called the pterygoid muscle that you can only get to by going through the inside of your mouth that often is very tight. Most people think it's a bone. It's so rigid back there, but it's something we can help loosen up to help decrease the symptoms of your TMJ.
And you're talking about something that could affect every aspect of your life.
Yeah, brushing your teeth, yawning,
food to communication,
eating, all that stuff.
So I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, sometimes increased stress will cause exacerbation of TMJ issues. We see a lot of younger adults, teenagers,
how does
with
the
TMJ
stress
issues.
Cause that?
It
Gritting
increases
your teeth clenching?
So you clench, exactly. You clench and grind your teeth, and when you clench and grind your teeth, your jaw is pressing down so hard the muscles get tired and they get tight.
Okay.
Those are issues that we deal with TMJ.
I do that. The grinding and I
clenching and grinding your teeth.
But as long as the 3 knuckles fit, I'm good, right?
Well, you want to prevent that clenching and grinding your teeth. And a lot of times the patient will go to a dentist or an orthodontist. We work a lot with Dr. Karski, Spokane orthodontist, and they will make a splint that you can put in your mouth and you can wear at nighttime that helps prevent the clenching and grinding.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. I knew about TMJ a little bit, and we've spoken a few times about the vestibular program. I know nothing about the lymphedema program.
So lymphedema is a unique program that we have at MRS Physical Therapy and Cranberry Physical Therapy. It's basically when your extremities swell. And why do they swell? Number one cause is cancer. It could be the treatment for the cancer, like radiation. It could be a traumatic event or injury. But basically, your limbs are swelling for some reason, and we're trying to manage that through a lymphedema program.
When this happens, is it going to be one limb, or will they all show signs of that?
It's usually a single limb if it's specific to lymphedema, unless you had radiation on both your arms, for example. It could have affected the lymph nodes on both sides. But what we do for lymphedema is we use what's called a sequential lymphatic pump that fills with air. We put it on your extremity, and it fills with air to help give you compression, help get the fluid down.
Yeah, I know what those are.
We do what's called manual lymphatic drainage, where we're doing basically some soft tissue work, but it's a very light soft tissue work on the limbs to help decrease the size. And then the most important thing is the wrapping. Just like it's a therapeutic ACE wrap, if you can imagine that, where we wrap the digits of your fingers or your toes, and then we wrap it all the way up to either your elbow, your knee, or your shoulder, or your hip, depending on where the lymphedema is. And that helps maintain the size of your limb. Then ultimately, we'll get you a compression stocking, which is going to help manage the overall lymphedema in your limb.
You mentioned compression socks. Are those helpful as a preventative measure? Because I see a lot of pro athletes when they get done with whatever the thing is.
That's kind of a different avenue we're talking about. That really has nothing to do with the lymphedema program. But there are some benefits, I think, to using those products for recovery. It's very different than what we're talking about with the lymphatic program for the purpose of it. But I do see some benefits of those.
What causes this to happen?
Again, the lymphedema could be caused. The number one cause is cancer. Okay. So patients that have had cancer or cancer treatment, specifically like radiation, can damage the lymph nodes. And when those lymph nodes are damaged, your lymphatic system doesn't flow the way it normally flows. And that's when you have the swelling, usually in a single arm or a single leg or something like that, depending on where the treatment was. But it's a very successful outcome. Usually the treatment program is about 6 to 8 weeks, but usually within the first week or so, we're seeing good results for our lymphedema program.
And for the people that don't know, explain to them, when you're wrapping up and you're putting a pressurized anything, you can do it too tight or too loose.
Yeah, you want a professional to do it because you don't want it too tight and you'll be cutting off your blood supply and causing other issues.
If your fingers turn purple, you did it wrong.
And we use a very specific type of garment. It's a very it's not a typical ACE wrap you buy at Walmart. It's a very specific therapeutic garment that we use for the wrapping that has the right amount of resistance to it, so you're not doing it too tight. And we teach the people how to do that as well.
Dale Reckless, MRS Physical Therapy. I've got one more question real quick, but tell people how to get in touch with you about any of these or any of your programs.
Okay, so we have two offices. One is MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater. That's right in Stone Point Landing, and that number is 724-728-7550. And then the Cranberry office is Cranberry Physical Therapy, which is on Route 19, right next to North Park Lounge. And that number is 724-591-8121. And one more thing I wanted to touch on, I see you looking over, we do sell some products as well, which not a lot of people know we sell products.
Something.
So we sell everything from TheraBands, which are those stretch resistance bands, to physio balls. Our price points are probably the most competitive you're going to find. I always look to make sure that we're better than Amazon prices, Walmart prices, et cetera. So our price points are very competitive. We sell orthotics. The two things I brought in is a brace that we just started selling for plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis is a pretty common diagnosis that we see. And this has been a very good brace for our patients. They really like it because it's soft. Some plantar fascia braces are too hard and rigid. They're really hard to sleep in because they're so uncomfortable. This one's proven to be very soft and comfortable. It's got a lot of cushioning. And what the premise behind it is when you're in bed, it holds your foot up in position so your plantar fascia doesn't get tight through the course of your night.
Okay.
And then the other product I have that is
that's what I was looking at.
We've had for a couple of years now. It's called Stop Pain. So it's a competitor of items. It would be a competitor of like a BioFreeze or a Bengay or something like that. Stop Pain has more menthol in it than BioFreeze, and we used to sell BioFreeze as well, but we found this product to be superior to it. So we no longer sell the BioFreeze. We've moved over to selling the Stop Pain. We've had
good.
really good feedback from our clients. And we also have a migraine option as well for people that suffer from migraines. It's a different product than the one I'm showing you here, but it's the same company. And you just rub the product behind your ear. And I've heard really good success stories from patients that have migraine issues to help decrease their migraines, decreases the intensity and frequency of their migraines.
And that's something you're talking about affecting somebody's life in a positive way for the rest of their life.
Migraines wipe you out for days sometimes, right?
That must be good stuff because I've used the BioFreeze for a long time.
Yeah.
And it must be good stuff.
Yeah.
Dale, always great to see you. I got more questions. I'll just corner you when we get done here. Dale Reckless of MRS Physical Therapy has been my guest. The first hour is Teleforum. It's Beaver County Radio. News is next.
Beaver County High School football has always been known as the best high school football around. And again this year, everybody around the world will get to see and hear the action on Beaver County Radio. Every Friday night throughout the regular season, we will have live coverage of the game of the week with a video stream on the Beaver County Radio Facebook page and YouTube channel, and an audio stream on air at 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and online at beavercountyradio.com and the St. Barnabas Broadcasting app. We'll also have coverage of select games on some Saturdays as well. High school football on Beaver County Radio this season is being brought to you in part by St. Barnabas Dental and Dr. Peter Montini, Goldberg Persky and White, Friendly Federal Credit Union, Dr. C. Timothy Lipp, Freedom United Federal Credit Union, Luxembourg Garbett Kelly and George, Electric Garage Door Sales of Monaca, and Beaver County Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Nissan, among others. So tune in every Friday night right here on Beaver County Radio. Thanks for tuning in to Beaver County Radio, created by local people in the St. Barnabas studio. 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and